Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the host of the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio and a college basketball broadcaster for Westwood One. Please welcome Doug Gottlieb to the program. Doug, it's great to have you on. How are you?
John, I'm great, man. I'm great. It's out in Southern California. It's a beautiful sunny morning. The NCAA Tournament's going off without a hitch, and love to talk some sports with you.
Doug, which team busted your bracket this year?
Illinois, probably. I think Illinois, probably most so. I mean, I thought Gonzaga was going to win this thing for about, 5 months. They're just better than everybody else. So that's not a hard pick, but I got a chance to do 3 regular season Illini games and all their Big Ten tournament games, and I really liked the versatility with how they could play, how they could beat you. I like Brad personally. I like him as a coach. Like, all of these things are all good, and I was surprised at the thoroughness by which they got their ass kicked the other day.
Why do you think it happened? What led to their downfall?
Well, one, Loyola's obviously very good. Some of those guys were on the Final Four team. Some of those guys joined them because of the Final Four team. So let's not undersell their level of talent. I also think that, tournament games are different. And you even if you play a Big Ten for a Big Ten championship and you win it in overtime, there's a different level, not just of intensity, but, you get down and you're like, oh, we lose this game, our season's over. So there's just a different, not just attention to detail, but kids can react differently to everything. But I think the biggest reason was I loved what Loyola did defensively and offensively, and it struck right at the exact right way to try and beat the Illini. And some of it is in the construction of Illinois and how they're built that was flawed, but some of it was in how they played. And I didn't think they reacted well to the style of offense and defense that Loyola played with. And Loyola it's 2 parts to it, right? Like, part of it is Porter's coaching, but also a good part of it is the kids executed to near perfection what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it.
How much farther do you see Loyola going right now?
I think I'll go to the Final Four.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
I like to draw for them, and they're really good. The two biggest reasons are kind of obvious ones. And that's really kind of what it comes down to is I like all parts of this team. First, like Oregon State. So, my brother was there for 5 years, right, and recruited these kids. They're good. And I do think that the way Loyola plays, there'll be some shots that can be had, and you got a week to prepare for it. So there's no real tricks to it, right? They're not changing the way they play defensively, but Oregon State was a 6 seed in the Pac-12 tournament for a reason. Like, they're way better than people thought, but let's not act like they got the world's greatest team. They don't have a lot of depth. Ethan Thompson's a tremendous player. He's not really a point guard. And they kind of have one guy he's like maybe the only guy who can create off the dribble for them. So I do like, Roman Silva inside can score. They have a nice team, but I feel like Loyola's got a very, very good team, and a game played in the 60s, which Loyola will make it. It favors the Ramblers. And then, coming out of that, I don't know who they'll play next, but I love their connectivity defensively. I love the way they're going to make you make contested jump shots. They're going to make you play at their pace. And then, you have it's not just that they have a big guy in Krutwig. They know how to use him, and he's played over 100 games for Porter. He knows so when he gets the basketball, all the things that Porter has been teaching him he doesn't have to think about them. They're all just reactions now, and he just plays. So, I think they're going to go to the Final Four.
Doug Gottlieb here on Sports Talk Chicago. Doug, how surprised were you by the Big Ten's performance in this tournament in general?
Very, very. Part of it was doing Big Ten games. You fall in love with the league and the players and the coaches, and you're like, man, this league's really good. I also, you have to balance it out. So if you're honest, you go like, hey, Michigan State, disappointing year, good finish, and they had the ball, tie game at the end of regulation, chance to win it, right? So if they make that shot, Baron Henry makes a shot, well, they probably go to the Sweet 16 and we'll have a completely different discussion, right?
Right.
Ohio State has the ball with a chance to win the game against, what was it, Oral Roberts, whatever, and you take a Damian Lillard step back three. You take a better shot, you make that shot. Ohio State's still playing. We have a completely different discussion. Purdue, they have a lead. They're tied against North Texas. It's a tough matchup for them because North Texas plays small. They're tied in overtime with a front end of a 1-on-1. They miss free throws. They make those free throws. Completely different discussion. So I do want to balance out this, Big Ten sucks conversation with, a couple of different results. And it's not like, hey, Illinois got their ass kicked. They weren't winning that game. You could tell 10 minutes into the game that Illinois wasn't adjusting and they were lost. And they were, Brad was kind of chasing it and chasing lineups, and he couldn't get it going. Once it got to the half, you're like, this sucker's over, man. There's just, so that one I wouldn't chalk up as, hey, it's basketball, shot here, shot there. There wasn't one play that would have changed that outcome, but many of the other games would have. But I also think that we have to be honest, and this is a little bit like what Michigan has gone through in some years in football. Big Ten teams have gone through in some years in football outside of Ohio State, which is what it takes to win in your league doesn't always take to win nationally. And that league is, they don't have great guards, in terms of NBA caliber point guard play. They don't have them. But they all have quality big guys, and, they beat the crap out of each other. And when you get into, NCAA tournament play, the level of speed and athleticism and guard play is just, it's peaked. And especially lower level teams, they don't have any good big guys, right? They're spreading you out. They're going at best 4 out, 1 in, sometimes 5 out, no in. And Big Ten teams aren't constructed necessarily to win that way. And when you're not constructed to win that way, making an adjustment in game 30 is really, really hard.
How'd the Pac-12's performance relate? They, I think, exceeded any expectations they had going in, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't on with you, but I've been telling people for the last month that I thought the Pac-12 would be massively underseeded, not necessarily underrepresented, underseeded. They're just here's what's hurt the perception of the Pac-12 is in years past, Illinois didn't do it. I mean, Arizona didn't do anything in the tournament when they were 1 seed a couple years ago. And the teams that are the traditional, I don't know if you want to say powers or whatever, in the Pac-12, the ones with the best players in the last 20 years, Cal and Washington, outside of UCLA and Arizona, none of them are good teams this year. They're just not, for various reasons. Stanford is a team that used to be a stalwart of the NCAA tournament. Last 12 years, they made 1 NCAA tournament. So when you take off the teams that you're used to seeing, that you're used to having in the NCAA tournament, and you have kind of some of these afterthought schools, it's hard to adjust. Arizona State is a school that's been really good and was highly touted to start the year, and Utah, and they all stunk this year for various reasons. So I think that's part of it. Part of it is they haven't performed well in the tournament recently. That's part of it. And I think part of it is also like this year was really hard because there were it was slower to get started in the West Coast, and there were a bunch of shutdowns in California, in Oregon. So, Oregon specifically is a team who people didn't really see whole until the end of the year. And all the Pac-12 coaches are like, dude, who the best team is? It's Oregon. USC is a team where, I don't think anybody knows outside. They say, well, they got one big kid who's in Evan Mobley, who's going to be a top 5 pick. Like, yeah, well, they have his brother. And then they have like 6 Division I transfers that are really good and really old. They got a 6'8" point guard. So, but people weren't able to kind of truly evaluate on a national level because there were very few intersectional games of that magnitude. And unlike the Big Ten, they weren't those teams weren't the same as they were last year. Like Iowa's basically the same team as it was last year with add in Keegan Murray, right? And you kind of go through it, and Illinois is kind of the same team as last year. You add in Andre Carmelo. Those teams are almost all new, so they're gonna change and evolve and get better over time, and I think that's why they were a little bit slower to get going. But I'm surprised at, how well they played in the tournament, no question. But look, this is kind of where we are in the sport, in that it's really, really hard to determine how good somebody is in November, December, because there's so many transfers. It takes a while to figure out which teams are good.
Could one of them be in the Final Four, if you had to guess? A Pac-12 team.
Yeah. Why not? Oregon, Oregon or USC, whoever wins that game, and they're two completely different teams. Now, USC, I think USC walloped them pretty good by 14 last time around. I'm like, USC's hard now. They that kid Evan Mobley's a stud. His brother's really good, and then Drew Peterson, their point guard, 6'8", and then Taj Edey's 24 years old, a shooter. Like, they're good. They haven't done it smoke and mirrors at all. And then Oregon is really good. Chris Duarte's 23, and he's a hard matchup. Dane Altman's just about as good a coach there is in the country. And they're just now whole. Since they've had their whole roster, they're like 12-3. And their only losses are to Oregon State and USC, who turns out are pretty good. So, I think either one of those two teams I would not stun me at all if they go to the Final Four.
What about a tournament winner? Who do you think would win it right now?
Gonzaga.
Still Gonzaga?
Yeah.
Why so?
They're better. There's my analysis. If I was to find a weakness, it would be, I guess, depth. And, sometimes their defense is just okay. But that won't be challenged here. That won't be challenged here right now because they're playing Creighton. Creighton's going to try and play fast, which is not going to work. I just think they're better. They're really, 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 really good. And by the way, people can go, and I know in Illinois they can go to BetRivers and BetRivers.com, and they have all kinds of cool stuff, not just straight up bets on the games, but they got other stuff working as well.